On today's show, Asteroids, Latinos voting, the Great Reset, which includes Biden's Green New Deal. Let's mediate.
And now I'm hearing tell that there might be an asteroid heading towards Earth on Election Day. True or false, Neil?
It's true. It's true. It's a refrigerator-sized asteroid, and given the uncertainty in this orbit, there's a small sliver of that uncertainty that includes colliding with Earth on November 2nd.
And what would be the fallout of a refrigerator-sized meteor hitting
Yeah,
us?
I mean, you would see it if you were anywhere in sight line of when it hit. It's going, 10 or 20 miles per second. So it would explode on impact. You would see it all around. It would be a tremendous meteor shower. But no, it's not going to harm anyone. No.
So just a little comical skit for you guys. So there's a big comet coming, supposedly. Neil deGrasse Tyson says, no, nothing to worry. I'm going to take his word for it. It's crazy enough. If it does come, it'll be interesting considering, everything we're seeing right now with COVID and just elections and you name it. So if a big asteroid comes the day before the election, we'll just say, hey, come have a seat. Come join us, because this is just how things roll right now. So anyway, moving on. So our first article looks at Latino voters being bombarded with right-wing misinformation, experts and advocates say. And so there's apparently some misinformation going out. Latino voters they're a big concern right now because the election's right around the corner, and it looks like Latino vote matters at this point. So does the black vote. So does everybody else's. But let's see what's going on here. It says misinformation conspiracy theories swirling around the 2020 presidential race are reaching an alarming number of Latino voters in Florida through Spanish language social media sites, advocacy groups, and elected officials said. And so the big concern is that all these news stations, social media, and all these other platforms are putting out information that Latino voters are being, according to this article, confused by. So as a Latino myself, I'm offended by this. I think it's ridiculous. You're essentially saying that Latinos don't have a brain and essentially they believe anything that comes their way. Let's keep reading. We have seen Biden being compared with Fidel Castro and Maduro, and that is why right now, as an organization, we're focusing on promoting the best reliable information and making sure that nobody trusts the information that Trump and his allies are promoting, said Hector Sanchez, executive director of Mi Familia Vota, a non-profit organization.
I'm going to be good to go down as one of the most progressive presidents in American history.
Nuestros gobiernos progresistas.
A las ideas progresistas, a las ideas del socialismo.
Este nuevo eje progresista tendría aliados poderosísimos.
The most progressive presidents in American history.
Progresista de izquierda revolucionaria.
The most progressive presidents in American history.
Una revolución socialista en las propias narices de los Estados Unidos.
So that's the concern here. It says that they are particularly vulnerable to many challenges related to misinformation and disinformation. So Latinos are very vulnerable to using their brains, using their minds to know the difference between wrong and right. But let's see why they believe this, because apparently this person has a Latino last name, Hector Sanchez. I mean, I don't know why he thinks his community, his people are so gullible. The language barrier coupled with the mistrust in government. Okay, when we see this, okay, now it makes more sense, right? So the lack of trust in government. So it's not just lack of trust in government. Here, when people come from other countries, especially Latin American countries, especially Mexico and places like that, the government is not very trustworthy. And so therefore they come here and they kind of bring that mistrust. But that being said, the government here also, as we can see, is not to be trusted many times. The issue is that they cannot be trusted in general. So right now we're like, who do we vote for? Because we don't trust this candidate or that candidate. It's not just a Latino thing. And so don't paint this light on Latinos like this, because we can see past this stuff. And the fact that we don't trust what we're being told, well, that's because we're using our brains. In Florida, more than half of Cuban voters backed Trump in 2016, according to Pew Research. And according to Florida International University 2018 Cuba poll, 54% of Cubans in South Florida were registered as Republicans in 2018. So that number is increasing in terms of Republicans. Now, I don't care whether they're Republican or what they are, but the point is that they're voting more conservative. The majority of Cubans in the U.S. have long identified or leaned toward the Republican Party. Well, because Latinos tend to be more conservative in their beliefs. Now, does that mean they tend to be Republican? That's not what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is they tend to vote Democrat only because they're promised all these things, but those things never come to reality. So even as Hispanics overall have leaned Democrat, though that has changed in recent years. In a letter sent to the FBI on October 8th, Representative Debbie McCarcel Powell, Democrat of Florida, and Republican Joaquin Castro, Democrat of Texas, urged the agency to conduct an investigation into the origins of what is called disinformation campaigns. So again, these people are coming at us saying, "Oh, you have to go investigate this because these people can't think for themselves." This just bothers me. Maybe I'm wrong to think that, but it does bother me. In the letter sent in September, the representatives noted that the disinformation targeting Latinos often contains far-right conspiracy theories relating to QAnon. Okay, yes, we don't trust the government. Yes, we don't trust what's going on. Yes, there are a lot of things out there right now that are interesting, but it's not just Latinos. It's in general. We see all these things with rapists, pedophiles, the Epstein case, the Weinstein case, all these different things that are going on right now. It's not just conspiracy. There's stuff going on right now. And there's various things. It even carries on saying theories suggested say that Joe Biden's like Castro, that the coronavirus is a hoax, and Black Lives Matter movement involves witchcraft. Have you guys looked at some of those videos that BLM is involved in terms of the founders? They literally are saying that they call to spirits, and these spirits are what guides them, and so on and so forth. It's interesting. Watch.
The need to lift our folks up feels so incredibly spirit driven for me. That you kind of invoke that spirit, and then those spirits actually become present with you, right? I think it really illustrates what it is you're saying, because we do that often. Some of, and maybe I'm sharing too much, but we become very intimate with the spirits that we call on regularly, right? Like each of them seems to have a different presence and personality. I laugh a lot with Waukesha, and I didn't meet her in her body, right? Yeah. I met her through this work.
So Stefan Nuno Perez, Communications Director of Latino Decision and Organization, focused on Latino political opinion research, told ABC News that in a state like Florida, where Republicans have essentially been in power since 1999, they are able to control all the narratives. So again, people can't think for themselves. It's the narratives are being controlled, and that's the issue here. They're looking at the number of Venezuelan eligible voters in Florida. It grew by 184%. Now Venezuelan. So they're looking at Cubans, Venezuelans, and Latinos in general, but mainly those countries that have a socialist background. And because of this, that's why they have this great fear that these people are going to associate what they came from with the current socialist movement and what's happening. And we're going to cover some of that right now. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. Not just in the U.S. Let's take a look at that. Let's move forward and look at what's going on elsewhere. So The Hill reported a few months ago, I think it was in, here it is, June 25th. It says, introducing the Great Reset, world leaders' radical plan to transform the economy. So there's something called the Great Reset that the World Economic Forum is working on. And this is an opinion piece from The Hill. And it says, for decades, progressives have attempted to use climate change to justify liberal policies. But their latest attempt, a new proposal called the Great Reset, is most ambitious and radical plan the world has seen in more than a generation. What is the Great Reset, and why are they bringing this up right now? Instead of traditional capitalism, the high-profile group said the world should adopt more socialistic policies such as wealth tax, additional regulations, and massive Green New Deal government programs. What does that sound like? Bernie? Biden? Michael Moore? I mean, all these people who are behind this, AOC. So again, instead of traditional capitalism, the high-profile group said the world should adopt more socialistic policies. The world, such as wealth tax, which is what's happening right now, the changes with taxes. Joe Biden wants to tax people who make 400 and some plus, and we're going to talk about that, 400 some thousand. Additional regulations and massive Green New Deal government programs. What is AOC trying to push? What is Bernie Sanders trying to push? And what are they now adding to Joe Biden's plan, which he's calling for a new Green Deal? It says every country from the United States to China. Did you guys hear that? Every country from the United States to China. Now, what I just saw, apparently there's 195 countries. Of those, 130 something countries are already in on this. So there's only a few hanging on. And I believe we're one of them that doesn't quite want to go this direction. Must participate. Not should. Must. and every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed. Okay, California just announced recently that by 2035, we're going to have all electric vehicles. We went over that during that. If you want to look at it, go back a few episodes before. We're moving in that direction. They're saying whether you like it or not, we're doing it, and everybody must follow. So it says, in short, we need a great reset of what? Of capitalism. Now, they're saying that COVID-19 is the perfect opportunity to do this. So they're using COVID-19 as a reason to move this plan forward. Schwab also said, it says here, that all aspects of our societies and economies must be revamped, from education to social contracts and working conditions. The world needs massive new government programs and far-reaching policies comparable to those offered by American socialists, such as Bernie Sanders, like we mentioned, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and in their New Deal plan, New Green Deal, I'm sorry. Or put another way, let's just see if we can say it a little nicer. We need a form of socialism, a word the World Economic Forum has deliberately avoided using, all while calling for countless socialist progressive plans. But now they're more upfront. Now they're saying this is what we have to do. This must happen now. Now is the time. Why? Because it says the coronavirus pandemic has created an important opportunity, which they acknowledge would likely not have been made possible without the pandemic. They've been waiting for the right moment to move this plan forward. The answer is that they've already identified another crisis that will require expensive government intervention. What is that crisis? Climate change. Why are they pushing climate change over and over and over? We saw the debates. We've seen over and over that they keep on asking the question, what do you think of climate change? What do you think of climate change? What do you think of? It seems like once you get that on board, this is automatic. And so again, the answer is that they've already identified another crisis. And so with these two crises, we're going to go ahead and implement this new plan, right? Out of chaos comes order. So that's the plan here. It sounds a little conspiratorial, but this is not conspiracy. They're actually talking about this. This is the plan that they're working on. For those of us who support free markets, the Great Reset is nothing short, and this is the opinion part of this piece, is nothing short of terrifying. Our current crony capitalistic system has many flaws, to be sure, but granting more power to the government agents who created the crony system and eroding property rights is not the best way forward. This is very clear which way they're going. So what do you guys think about that? They want us to move to a more socialist. Actually, they just want to make it socialist worldwide. They're waiting for the rest of the countries. We said about 195 countries exist in the world, according to the data. Of those, 130 something already on board. They want to make this worldwide, a socialist one world government. That's what they're working on. It sounds conspiratorial, but that's exactly what they're discussing here. That's what they're working on. What do you guys think about that? Now, it's interesting because here we are fighting against a system like this in terms of, you have Trump, who seems to be in the way of this progress of this system. This is a progressive movement. This is what the Bernie Sanders movement looked like. This is what they want. It looks like they're going to shove it down your throat, whether you like it or not. And it's something that we really have to work towards or against if we don't want this to happen. Now, again, people receiving what they need, healthcare, all these things. It's not that I'm against that. People should be helped. They should be supported, but not at gunpoint. Not to where you're forcing people to give up what they have earned to give to somebody else who has not earned it. Not because we don't want to help that person, but because we don't want to make a situation where that's going to create a system that enables people to not work towards things. I mean, if you end up having, let's just call it communism, because that's where socialism tends to end. I mean, if you look at the progressive aspect of that movement of Marxism, which is what these people are pushing for, including the BLM founders, that's where it goes. It's a progressive system that does not stop once you say, okay, now we have this, now we have healthcare, now we have this, now we have that. It continues from there. It restarts, it resets. And that's why you see that the left, what used to be the left, has now become progressive. And so people who consider themselves Democrat are not associating with that anymore because it's gone now to a different level. Well, guess what happens? When the progressives get what they want, they become that classical liberal, and from there you get another version of it, and from there it just keeps on progressing until you end up destroying what you have. It's really interesting, and that's just an aspect of it. So here's Biden's plan for a clean energy revolution and environmental justice. This is his plan. So this is the plan that he said that he had, which is not the Green New Deal. Okay, all right, Biden. I'll take your word for it until I go to your website, as was stated during the debates, and I go scroll down and I find Biden believes the Green New Deal is a crucial framework for meeting the climate challenges we face.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself.
Do you support the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
You don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
It powerfully captures two basic truths, which are at the core of this plan. The United States urgently needs to embrace a greater ambition on an epic scale to meet the scope of this challenge. And our environment and our economy are completely and totally connected. So, what does that mean? The environment and the economy are completely connected. Well, the argument of climate change and the fact of our economy, which we're talking about Marxism, communism, whatever you want to call it, versus capitalism, in order to transform one or the other, according to this, they both must be changed. This looks like what the World Economic Forum is working towards. Biden is not telling the truth. Biden is telling us something that we want to hear, tickling our ears, not telling us the truth. We need to watch him. We need to be aware, really look behind the curtain in terms of what's happening here, because I think there's more than meets the eye.
There's more to them than meets the eye.
Just keep an eye out and definitely vote with understanding and knowledge. Let's move on. So we were talking about Biden. And so his tax plan could create rates as high as 62% for New Yorkers. That's what's coming out right now. He wants to tax New Yorkers 62%. Now, again, it says individuals earning more than 400,000 represent about 1.8% of the population. But if you look at that, okay, so your average Joe who goes to work for Walmart, for Amazon, whatever you want to call it, that person is not going to fall under this. That being said, there is a plan for that person as well. And we'll discuss that at another time. I don't have time today. The ones that are earning 400,000 plus, that's your small business. Whoever is trying to run a business and earning roughly that, because your person who's earning, let's say even 100 grand, or they're earning 150, for the most part, they're probably not running a business. They're just trying to make ends meet. They're going to a regular job. This is targeting your small business. And after Corona, we're already kind of in a mess with that. Small business is getting hit hard. Small business is disappearing. This would put the final nail in that coffin. Now, that being said, World Economic Forum that we just talked about, this is part of that restructuring of our society. If you are in a socialist system, small business really isn't part of the deal. So if you look at, and let's just jump straight to communism. If you look at communist societies, that's not really what is pushed. Small business is not. You really, independent, working for yourself is not really the deal. It's working for the government. It's having government owned, operated, and run businesses. That's where this is going. And that's the issue here. Keep an eye out on this. Really read into it. Look at what Biden's trying to offer. It sounds great, right? Yeah, this tax the rich. Well, somebody who has a small business and is not earning millions of dollars, I would say that they're probably not the rich. Maybe they're earning more than I am, but at the same time, I'm not running a business. This is not good. Not good at all. So this came out back in July, and it's related to the Great Reset movement. So it says by Fox News, Joe Biden's distributing connection to the socialist reset movement. And so it says, a pledge by Biden to support the Great Reset would pose a grave threat to liberty and free markets in the U.S. And that's pretty much what we discussed. It says a radical movement called the Great Reset, embraced by some Democrats, poses a grave threat to liberty and free markets in the United States and around the world. And that's what they're targeting, the whole world, like we said. And so it looks like Biden is being associated with this Great Reset. And if you look at his policies, they're kind of going in that direction. He partnered up with Bernie Sanders, who is also very much in line with that plan, and so is AOC. And so there's a whole movement here. Klaus Schwab, who is one of the leaders of this movement, and other Great Reset leaders have been making arguments against shareholder capitalism for literally decades, going all the way back to the 1970s. But only recently, spurred by concerns about climate change and wealth inequality, has it gained traction. They've been waiting for the right time, and here it is. So in fact, it says, as recently as July 13th, the World Economic Forum promoted building back better through green infrastructure programs as part of the Great Reset in an article titled, "To Build Back Better, We Must Reinvent Capitalism. Here's How." Build back better. Okay, so this is almost arguing against the Make America Great Again plan, right? So the building back better, and that's Joe Biden's plan as well. So building back from what? From Corona. Building back what? Something better. In whose eyes? Well, not ours, at least not mine. An inclusive and green recovery is vital if we are to create more resilient economies and a world in which business can thrive, not just now, but long into the future. The authors wrote, adding, a true recovery from COVID-19 will not be about putting things back together the way they were. Guys, they're looking at totally changing things. Really look at this election. Really look at what's going on here. We need to build back better to reset if we are to address the deep systemic vulnerabilities the pandemic has exposed. Similarly, in April, the World Economic Forum published an article titled How to Build Back Better After COVID-19. So they've been waiting for this, guys. This is all I got to say. They've been waiting, and here it is.
To shape a new agenda for growth, jobs, skills, and equity in a response to COVID-19, but most importantly, to recover better. The crisis has revealed the structural failures of economies and the societies across the globe. A global multilateral response is an imperative if our recoveries are to address the long-term impacts of the crisis. Fiscal packages are needed to support incomes and businesses, especially in low-income countries. We need a new generation of social protection systems. I'm confident that today's discussions will contribute to this important effort to transform our economies, the world of work, and deliver accelerated approaches to enhancing the competencies that are needed to recover better through education, reskilling, upskilling, and better jobs.
So Amina J. Mohammed says, Ms. Amina J. Mohammed is the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations and Chair of the United Nations Sustainable Development Group. Prior to her appointment, Ms. Mohammed served as Ministries of Environmental of Federal Republic of Nigeria, where she steered the country's efforts on climate action and efforts to protect natural environment. So this lady has some say. She's part of the UN, and she's part of this effort. And we see some of what she's saying. And she's building back better. And she's speaking against, the current system and wants to change it. Well, if that's what we want, then that's what you'll have. But a good portion of the people, especially in this country, they don't want to change that. Now, I'm all for change that is good. I'm all for things that, will benefit everybody. I truly don't believe this is in benefit of all of us. I think we're looking at a system where a few will have power, and which you may argue we have now, but I think it'll be in a whole another level. And we don't have to think too far, look at any country that has moved in the direction of, communism. I mean, Marxism is communism. It's called the Communist Manifesto for a reason. And the people who are behind this, are looking to Marxism. That's where this is going, guys. Some people will argue, well, look at, the Nordic countries and this and that. That's not what we're looking at. And those countries, from my understanding, have moved more to a capitalistic system in conjunction, of course, but they saw that it didn't work. And I think that's ultimately the issue. That initially you may see like, oh, wow, this is great. Yeah, because we'll be pumping a ton of money into it. But once we see that the money, the gross domestic product, the amount of money coming in does not equate to the money going out, we're going to have problems. And that's where you have things like where our social security system's broken. There's more going out than coming in. Then you have to rehaul the whole thing or just completely eliminate it. And it's at that point that, you've given up all your rights, all your property and everything. And now they're saying, well, you can't have it because we can't afford it. Think about it. And that wraps up our show, guys. Thank you for stopping by. Great sharing this with you. Pass it on, share it. I mean, this is important information. We have an election coming up. Lots of stuff going on. Just seriously think about it. Seriously share this with people. Like, subscribe, comment down below. We'll try to respond as soon as possible. Share. I mean, this is important and it needs to get out. If you're interested, stop by our other channel, One Mediator, CrossAnalysis. Stop by, check it out. It's through a biblical lens. I'll be looking at some of these topics. We go back and look at everything we talked about and put some of those topics in there and apply a biblical stance on each one because things are going crazy. There's one world government's coming to a city near you. Just keep an eye out and let's keep our focus on what's above, but also try to work on the things that are happening here because it's going to impact us greatly. Thanks, guys.